waiting for a confirmation that the VN system has started.
Not seeing video on my end.
I think we're good to go, Gaston.
Okay. Welcome to the February 15th, 2022 meeting of the Raleigh Historic Development Commission. We'll now do a roll call of the members of the commission.
Morning, everyone. This is Erin. Let's see, Travis Bailey.
Here.
Ian Dunn.
Here.
Sandy Feaster.
Here.
Vershay Height. Curtis Casafang.
Here.
Heather Leah.
Here.
Harold Millette. Harold, can you hear us? Can you say aye?
You can now.
Well, we see you on the screen. Don, if he's having mic trouble, can you work with him? Katie Pate.
Here.
John Reese.
I'm here.
And Gaston Williams.
Here. I note for the record that we have a quorum of the commission present and ready to do business. Just a couple reminders, please. Welcome to the meeting, and this is being recorded for viewing by the public generally. It's helpful if we don't overspeak too much. Try to keep your remarks concise this morning, because if you notice, we have a rather full agenda. Any questions you have, let Don know or one of the moderators know if you have a problem with the audio-visual function of the system. The first item of business is a look at the approval of the agenda. I think all of you have been sent in advance through board docs and other means a copy of today's agenda. Are there any additions or corrections or add-ons that you wish to make, and do you approve the agenda for today's meeting? All those who approve the agenda, please signify by raising your hand. All right, we will proceed on today's agenda as published. Second item is the minutes from the January 18th, 2021 meeting. They've been completed and sent to you. They are an attachment to item 2B on the agenda that you have through board docs. And is there a motion that we approve the minutes from the January 18th meeting? Excuse me. Been moved by Ian, seconded by Heather. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. The commission approves the minutes from the last meeting. The first item after that is the 1, 2, 3 topic. Ian has graciously agreed to put together this presentation. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time or don't remember what the 1, 2, 3 is, it's an idea to cover one topic in 2 minutes with 3 slides. At least that's the goal. So it's our miniature way of educating ourselves on a variety of issues related to historic preservation. Ian, I believe the floor and someone will present your presentation with your help, or you'll share your screen.
Staff, can you pull that presentation up? Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this might be more of a 1, 4, 5, but I'll do my best. So as many of you know, I work at the State Archives in the Audiovisual Materials Unit, which is part of Special Collections. We have somewhere between 5 million and 8 million individual prints and negatives at the State Archives. We don't know the exact number. We probably will never know the exact number. But we also have motion picture film and audio recordings. So how do you find images in this vast sea of material? Part of my job is to catalog this material and make it available to the public by state law. So next slide. There are two main tools. Well, the main tool is Doc, but there are two tools. The online catalog and the State Archives Flickr page. The online catalog has almost 1 million items. A lot of those are not audiovisual materials items, but think of the online catalog as a giant card catalog. So it won't have images. It's like the card catalog you would see in a library that tells you where a book is. So it helps us find photographs. It does not display photographs. You can go to the next slide. So how do you search Doc? So the easiest way is to Google State Archives Doc, and you can find this page on the left. And to search the catalog, you would click the purple box, and it will bring you to the page seen on the right. And to filter audiovisual materials, images, records, you will click on the audiovisual materials seen. I've got an arrow to it, and it will take you to the page seen on the next slide. So on this page, you would search in the search bar just like you would Google, and you'll get a list of results. I've done a sample search here for state capital, and the results will have with them a call number or record ID, and I've circled it in red. This is the item's unique identifier that you will either write down a list to view in the archives physically, or you can email me the call number, and I can either scan the material or send you images from our digital repository. It's pretty much that simple. So the next slide. The next way is to search our Flickr page. Our Flickr page has over 100,000 images on it. Unfortunately, Flickr makes it a little confusing to search within individual pages. So what you do is you click the little gray magnifying glass that I've circled, and that will filter your search to just our page. And then you just search in the search bar, and you'll see your results at the bottom. And that's pretty much it. If you don't find anything in our catalog or on Flickr, feel free to email me, and I can do a search. I have a lot of resources available to me that aren't available to the public to find images. And I'd like to emphasize that you're not inconveniencing me by asking me this. It is actually my job to provide public access to this material. So feel free, email me, give me reference requests. I like reference requests. That's it.
Just a quick question, Ian. During non-COVID times, if the general public or historians were interested and somehow needed some guidance, are there public terminals available at the archives?
Yes, you can visit us in person. You can do that right now.
Thank you very much. Any questions about the 1, 2, 3 presentation? I noticed that the attachment to item 3 on the agenda, 3A, has a very nice, has the visuals. You can print the guide to how to use it if you need that kind of guidance or save it to your computers. Thank you very much, Ian. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is our first UDO review, a rezoning case involving the Cabarrus Street, Bloodworth Street, and in a collection of 8 properties, I think, that are in the Prince Hall Historic Overlay District or the Raleigh South Park National Register District. I have down the action items for us to consider is whether to recommend approval or denial of the application, or in the alternative, attach some suggestions to either approval or denial, saying why we're doing so. I believe our staff members are Colette and Jason. I'm not sure which one of you is presenting on this. Would y'all please start the staff briefing on this?
Hey, Gaston, this is Colette. I will kick it off before we pass it to Jason. I just wanted to remind you that you heard this initially at the November meeting. You got a little preview before the application was officially filed. And you are correct, 2 of the properties in this request are located in the Prince Hall Historic Overlay District. The remainder are located in East Raleigh, South Park National Register District. So that is why this request is coming to you. Jason, I have your presentation ready to share, so you can take over.
Thanks, Clay. Good morning, Jason Harden with Planning and Development. I just have a small number of slides to walk through to illustrate the area of the rezoning request. So we can go to the next slide. So the city currently owns all of these parcels, all of which are completely or partially within a PD, plan development district that dates back a couple of decades. All of these are currently vacant. The intent is to use these properties to ultimately become subsidized affordable housing. The existing PD does permit housing as a use, but is restrictive in terms of the total number of units. So therefore, we would limit the number of affordable units that potentially could be produced on these sites. So there's 8 total properties. I have a map or two that illustrates these, all on Cabarrus, Bloodworth, and East Street. So there you see the map. So there's 2 separate locations here. It was a pretty big, sprawling, at least in terms of a downtown context, PD over a number of blocks. So 2 on the west side of Bloodworth Street. They are currently, there's one that is partially PD and partially downtown mixed use, 3 stories detached, and the other is entirely PD. The request would change the zoning on both of those to match the remainder of that block, which is all DX3 DE. So that would permit a detached house, a duplex, given the small size of the lots, a small, say triplex or quadplex potentially. But again, same zoning as the rest of the block. And then southeast from there at the corner of Cabarrus and East Streets, the remaining 6 parcels and the request there, those are all PD with a very small section of R10 on the back of one of those. Those are all proposed to be rezoned to residential mixed use, 3 stories, and urban limited frontage. Essentially means that they would be a little closer to the street. And residential mixed use allows all the different residential building types. So they, again, could be detached houses, duplexes, townhouses, apartments. We can go to the next slide. And I would note it doesn't propose to alter the historic overlay district. That would remain on the Bloodworth parcels. So this is what it looks like. You can see those are all vacant parcels, so an opportunity to add some additional housing in a place that's very close to transit and downtown and other destinations. Next slide, please. And then some views of the lots themselves. So this is Bloodworth. This is looking west toward downtown. You can see those 2 vacant lots. We can go to the next slide. And these are the several lots at Cabarrus and East Street. I believe that is the last slide. So in terms of the process, this has not yet gone to the Planning Commission. There has been a neighborhood meeting. A second neighborhood meeting is scheduled for next week. Planning Commission will review and recommend to City Council. That's all that I have. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any.
Jason, I have just a quick kind of off-topic question because of my lack of geography knowledge on this. How close is it to the site of the Ligon House, these parcels? Ian might know, or Jason, you might know. How many blocks or how far away?
I can do a quick calculation unless somebody beats me to it.
The commission, Jason, has pledged its efforts to assist the owner of the Ligon House into not tearing it down or relocating it or preserving it somehow in as close to its current location or in its current location as best we can. And I know there are efforts underway. I just don't know what they are right yet. I think they're still working with staff. You could just let me
Our
know.
process there. It's certainly pretty close. I'm gonna see exactly how many blocks away it is.
Looks like it's about 4 or 5, maybe in that range. Definitely within the distance to move the house. That's for sure.
Jason, could you link back to the staff, the 3 regular staff members to the commission and at least evaluate the lots that are being made available by this process and see if any of them would be an alternative location for the Ligon House if it had to be moved?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. And I can say at least I can see a theoretical possibility there. I think Housing and Neighborhoods is the department that's primarily been working on this, and they've done at least some initial feasibility of the lots for different housing types. Think that at least at that corner at Cabarrus and East, that's where they're hoping to build a small apartment building. But some of the lots, I think they feel like might be just physically more well suited to a detached house. So again, I can see that theoretical possibility. At the very least, it's worth exploring that option and seeing if there's some potential there. So I will certainly coordinate with them.
That'd be great if you'd coordinate, and when we'll put this, make sure staff that we get this on the agenda for the next commission meeting in March to review what progress we've made toward this goal of helping with the Ligdon House if we can. All right. Any questions from the commission? I see there are no questions. Thank you very much, Jason and Colette, for your part in this report. You need a motion. Is there a motion from the commission?
I'll give it a shot. Before I do, I'd love to just take the temperature of the commissioners here as far as this rezoning. From what I'm putting together and reading this, essentially the Bloodworth properties are staying within the HOD, so it inherently has a context-sensitive design there because they have to comply with the guidelines on any infill. And the East Street properties, looking at the zoning map, I believe they are in National Register Historic District, so there are no constraints on what can happen there from that, other than it's considered part of our historic resources. And I'd love to be corrected if I'm wrong on this, Aaron or Colette.
Aaron, that's correct.
Okay. So, and essentially your comments that you've brought forward on the context sensitive design are really applying to the East Street properties, correct? Hence, the Bloodworth are already in HOD, therefore they are required to have context sensitive design. Am I correct in that?
Curtis, this is Aaron. In terms of what Colette was responding to in the memo,
Yeah.
I think that is accurate, but I'll let her confirm.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
accurate.
Okay. Lots, my colleagues? Then I will dive on in. I'd like to move that RHGC finds that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the relevant historic preservation policies in the comprehensive plan, and citing policy HP 1.1, 1.2, 2.7, and 3.4. If staff wants to fill in some text beyond that, that would be grand. We find that the retention of the HOG status on the South Bloodworth parcels will ensure context-sensitive design. And RHGC recommends that the following condition be applied to the Southeast Street parcels to be consistent with the policy HP 3.4, context-sensitive design. The condition is to require the infill to follow section 3.3 of the design guidelines for Raleigh Historic District.
Was that a comma or a period at the end there?
A period.
Any commissioner wish to second the motion, please?
I'll second Travis Bailey.
Okay, Travis has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as read into the record, please signify by raising your hand or indicating. May the record reflect that all the commissioners present are voting to approve the motion as Curtis has stated it. Thank you, Curtis, for that.
Sure.
The next item that I have is rezoning case Z522 for 707 Seamart Drive, excuse me. Is Matt or Colette on this from the staff point of view?
Hey, Gaston, it's Colette. I will start off and then pass it to Matt.
All right, great tag team. Thank you.
Yes, we are a good team. So as you mentioned, this is rezoning case C522 for 707 Seamart Drive. This request is before you today because the executive committee has requested a discussion due to the commission's long interest in the structure on the site, which is Seaboard Station. The property is not designated as historic. However, there was a survey in 1991 that determined it as potentially eligible for the National Register. It was officially determined eligible in 2005 as part of another survey. Review is not required by you all for this application due to the fact that it does not have any official historic status. The research committee last spring sent a letter to the property owner of interest for Raleigh Historic Landmark designation. But I will note that this was sent prior to the sale of the property, and the committee had communication with the previous owner. So for this discussion today, we are encouraging discussion only, not for you to make any official recommendation or decision. It is very early in the application process. So I expect that things may change as the application moves forward. So consider this as your intro to the application. And after a conversation with the applicants, you can discuss what next steps you may have. So Matt, if you're ready, I'll pull up the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Colette, and good morning, RHDC. We'll go through a quick handful of slides. So this is the existing zoning map. You can see the 707 Seamart Drive property outlined in black. It's just under 3 acres, and it's currently zoned for 7-story downtown mixed-use 7-story urban general, meaning that 7-story mixed-use buildings can be built there. The urban general designation relates to how those structures face public streets. The proposed zoning here is to increase the permitted building height from 7 stories to 20 stories. There is no proposed frontage on the requested zoning. There are zoning conditions. We'll go over those in a second. Next slide. So here's the site in just the Seaport Station area. You can see it along the railroad tracks to the left. Peace University on the right side of the screen. Next slide. So the request is consistent with the future land use map designation of Central Business District. It's currently zoned DX. The recommended districts are DX. So consistent with that policy. Next slide. This is the urban form map, which would recommend a urban frontage that is being removed in the request. So it's inconsistent with this policy. The other things that are shown on the urban form map here is you can see that core transit area hatched, and also the red is in the city's downtown. So being in downtown and being in a core transit area, the city's comprehensive plan recommends tall urban scale development buildings in these locations. It's walkable to existing and planned frequent transit, walkable and bikeable to downtown regional employment center. And so that's what is shown on this map. Next slide. These are the proposed zoning conditions, limiting a handful of uses that you see in condition number 1. And then condition number 2 provides that a sidewalk is provided along the eastern boundary of the subject site. And that is my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
It might be a question for Colette in a minute, but I noticed in the printed materials in the staff report, relevant conditions offered, no relevant conditions are offered. What does that mean for the people who are listening in who may not be familiar with our lingo?
This is Colette. So for our specific lingo, there are currently no conditions relevant to preservation provided by the applicant.
Okay, I just want to make sure I remembered it. Colette, would you take over the next portion, please?
Certainly. Would you like to open it up to the applicant first? We have Jamie Swedler here and Jason Davis. And then we also have, I believe we're 2 members of the public, Jeremy Bradham with Capital Area Preservation and Tina Govan present to speak in addition.
Aston, you're muted.
Yes, thank you very much. Let's see, Jamie, you want to lead off, or Jason, who wishes to lead off on behalf of the applicant? And welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Gaston. Good to see you. This is Jamie Schwedler at 301 Fayetteville Street with Parker Poe. I'll lead off and try to handle as many questions as I can because this is a little bit of a different context than the other cases that have appeared on your agenda. The case is coming to you under this unusual context because it does not have a historic district zoning or a landmark designation. So as Colette said, it doesn't fall under those 2 categories, which we normally see you in, where there's a review and a comment and action to be taken. So we understand, I think our role this morning is to be involved in a discussion about where we are in the zoning case, which we're happy to do. Turnbridge, of course, respects the commission and has in fact been in front of you several times in the last year. So I'm happy to explain where we are in the zoning process. But we, as Colette said, we've just begun. And so some of that might be a little early in the stage. So at this point in time, Turnbridge acquired the property last year from the Logans, who wished to relocate due to their own needs and continuing business needs for which the property no longer served them. We began the zoning process shortly after that point, which really began with a great deal of stakeholder meetings and meeting in small groups to understand what folks had thoughts about our proposal in terms of what to do with the property and how to deliver the incredible housing needs that the City Council has repeatedly expressed that they needed in the downtown area. And so we've conducted those meetings for about 3 months now, including a recent meeting which the chair and Ms. Pate attended. And we're happy to continue with those discussions and hear from the public, but we're really in a listening mode at this point and trying to understand some of the input that is given to us. And of course, like any zoning case, we'll take that into account and work through the normal channels to understand what the public's input might be and how we may or may not be able to accommodate that. As the commission may be aware, this building is not historic, but sits in the center of the site. And so that presents much different challenges than different cases for which you've seen before you, where the historic building is actually designated and or on the edge of a district and able to be preserved in a meaningful way. So we're here to listen, happy to answer questions to the extent that we can. But again, we've just passed through the pre-application stage. We've just received city comments on Friday, shortly after we were noticed of this meeting. And so we're early in the process and haven't yet gone to our second neighborhood meeting and certainly not to Planning Commission. So I'm here to answer any questions that would be helpful to the commission.
Gaston, you're muted.
I am. Would it be helpful, Jamie, to hear from Jason next and then ask for questions from the commissioners and then go to the other speakers?
Jason does not, we don't have anything prepared. I mean, as I said, this is not a presentation of the zoning case. It's not coming before the commission in that regard, and it's outside the purview. So I believe he'd repeat much of what I've said, but
okay. Well, if anything Jamie, if anything occurs to you later other than direct questions, let me know if you wish to add to your comments so far. Okay. I think probably let's go around. I occasionally do a roundabout with the commission and ask for comments, and then we'll go to the public comments of the individuals who've been able to sign up to comment. Curtis, if I could call on you first. I'm on my screen. I'm going clockwise. So Curtis, just
okay. Well, I guess a couple of questions. We know from staff that the station has been on our radar screen for literally decades in terms of designation. So I think it's reasonable to say we have a desire to see it preserved. Understanding that the site is indeed a difficult one to work on. I think, at least my take on it is preserving it may not mean leaving it in the current location where it is on the site, but perhaps moving it. I'm wondering, for the applicant, have you heard any themes in terms of your public meetings, in terms of comments from the public?
Sure. Thank you, Curtis. We've heard, I wouldn't say that there's a prevailing theme. Certainly there are groups that have an interest in preserving it, but we've also heard from folks that are interested in having the, nuance of the rail station be honored in some way, the nostalgia. Much of our early stakeholder meetings didn't focus on the particular building itself or any remarkable attributes of it architecturally, but more of the nostalgia of the place and memories associated with the place. And so we've heard everything from preservation to echoing rail or station elements throughout our common areas, or using the type of architecture or signage perhaps in the architectural buildings and renderings that we ultimately end up building. We are not at the stage, of course, of design. And so we're taking all of that in and listening for those suggestions as we formulate our plans.
And am I to gather from the aerial map that the western train platform canopy is outside of this planned development?
Yes, sir. There are actually two canopies. One is on the fee property of the railroad and cannot be touched, and there's an easement protecting that. And the other canopy is on our property, and we are, as I mentioned, exploring options as to what and whether that could become a portion of the ultimate design.
Okay, that's it for me.
Heather, can you unmute and speak if you wish to?
Yes, I was taking some notes of some thoughts. As someone who's from Raleigh and my family has been in Raleigh for 5 generations, before Seaboard, of course, but during the time of Seaboard, when it was active as a train station. Of course, there's a personal interest in the building and seeing it preserved. And I am seeing that echoed online and in a lot of the groups where people are concerned about the building being saved and the history being saved. And definitely I'm sensitive to the and understanding to the idea that the building's in the middle of the plot of land and obviously a little bit more difficult to work with. And of course, as you know, it's been on the commission's radar for decades to want to save it, to want to make sure that it was a historic landmark. I like the idea of the compromise of, if possible, moving the building to save it. I'm not sure, I don't personally know about the economic viability of that, but that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I will say that the building itself does provide a lot of context to the history of the whole area around it. If you walk through the building, you can see pieces of architecture in the building, places in the building that are, remnants of when it was a train station. There's the stop block that's in the actual dining area where you can see where, it would be there to prevent trains from crashing through the station. So there's an architectural significance and just pieces of history in there. Right down the road, there's the roundabout, the turnabout that was part of the station, and then across the tracks you have the cotton mill. So I feel like Seaboard Station, that whole area, is given context by the train station being there, which is why ideally saving it in its site would be ideal. But I'm not against the idea of moving it. Failing that, obviously, personally, I would prefer to see the building saved and preserved and put into whatever development is put there. And I know a lot of people feel that way. They would love to see this piece of Raleigh be part of the development to give character to the development that makes it a very Raleigh development versus a development you could see in any other city. And I think that it would just give a lot of, it would show a lot of respect to the culture and the history and the deep roots of that area in Raleigh's history. Failing all of that, I certainly would at the very least love to see the allowing of historic documentation of the building. So if it were to be that it just has to be demolished, it can't be saved, it can't be moved, I would at least want to make sure, if possible, that historians could be allowed to come in there to photograph, to write, to soak up all of that history and make sure that whatever is there today is preserved, and at least documentation, perhaps pieces of the building donated to museums, donated to the archives, and perhaps even pieces of the building and the structure itself used in some sort of little exhibit within the development itself, at least to pay homage to what was there, so that it's not forgotten. To me, the worst thing would be to see a development go up and the history of what was there just completely wiped away and forgotten. If the building couldn't be saved, I do think at least documenting it as well as possible, donated to museums, and perhaps even having a little exhibit in the development itself, so that site's history is remembered and honored.
Carol Millett, do you have comments? Anything you wish to add? Questions? Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. No, I think Heather did a great job of expressing, I think, the concerns that a lot of members of RHDC have with this site. And yes, some type of, I think at minimum, I know in the past, I've, witnessed us at least come in and request that buildings are photographed and documented, if they have to be demolished. So I think I would just echo that sentiment as well.
Sandy? Feaster?
I think Heather's comments, as Harold referenced, are pretty concise and in line with my thinking. And just wanted to thank the potential applicant for starting this process early, because these are very sensitive subjects, and appreciate just the effort and time that's going into it so that we can comment and hopefully participate even more through the process.
Travis?
I just want to start off thanking the applicant for coming and attending the meeting and speaking to us. I know like having your legal team here is not a free endeavor for you to deal with, and given the current status of the building, there's no obligation for you to be here either. I will tack on my support for preserving or incorporating the building into your plans if possible, and if not, documenting the building as Heather was talking about. I would say in terms of documenting, if it's possible, and this is something I think we need to also take up as a commission to provide additional guidance based on this new technology. There are applications such as 3D scanning from companies like Matterport and others, where you can literally scan the building while taking photographs at the exact same time. And then using technologies like AR and VR, you can rebuild the building digitally. So, of course, ideally, we would have the building as it is today physically in the space. But if that's not an option at all, being able to allow others in perpetuity to view the building virtually, I think leverages new technology for a much better way to observe the building if it's not allowed to live on.
Katie?
I would start by saying I'm, kind of sad that we as a commission failed to proactively protect this building with some kind of historic status. I know we've been talking about it for a long time, but I think that there's more that we could have done in the past, especially being aware of the surrounding development. And we could and should have, and in the future with similar sites, I think be aware of that. That's not a reprimand. I just think, we let this one slip through, and that's unfortunate. And I think in this situation, and in preservation in general, hear a lot of talk about nostalgia, but historic preservation is about so much more than that. And it's not just about the good feelings that come with the memories of the buildings. These are cultural artifacts that are worthy of preservation and being upheld and add to the culture of our city. And it is so much more beyond nostalgia. And losing this building in its current form would be a significant loss for the city of Raleigh. And even though we do not have a formalized historic designation on the building, it is still a responsibility based on our mission and our existence as an entity here to protect Raleigh's history, regardless of the designation status. But thank you to the applicant for being here. And thank you, Jamie, for your patience with my questions the other night as well. So appreciate your presence.
Thank you.
John, you wish to comment? Do you wish to comment?
Yes. I appreciate all the comments. I am personally taking kind of a hard line on this one. I think it's very important that the building remain intact, in place, in its location, and be completely preserved. The applicant noted specifically the significance of place, and while this building could be moved, being moved out of its place is what is antithetical to the concept of why it's significant. I would hate to see this building gone. It represents one of the periods in history where segregation was very strong, and there are actual two entrances to that building, one for blacks and one for whites. That history cannot be lost or forgotten, and God forbid it become a cartoon of itself. I think the idea of nostalgia elements is does not honor that place as much as it turns into a marketing tool for a development that is not necessarily nowhere near what its presence will have, than preserving that building and working with it rather than against it. And finally, the simple waste of having that building be gone makes no sense to me whatsoever when it can be worked with. And if development is going to go into historical areas, this has to be an understanding that you've got to work with them. You cannot just erase them or turn them into marketing cartoons, for lack of a better word. That's all I have to say.
Ian?
My thoughts are very similar to John's, actually. I'm honestly a little disappointed that we're even talking about saving artifacts and documentation at this point. I think all of our thoughts should go into preserving this building at this point.
Colette, did I cover everybody? I think I did. If not, let me know right away. Colette, should we proceed to have the report from staff now, or the other public comments from the concerned people who signed up in advance? I think maybe I'd like to go over the staff memo first. And then
I would suggest that you hear from the members of the public who signed up.
Okay. Tina and Jeremy. Tina Govan is a part of the Mordecai community, I believe. Tina?
Yes. Hey. Hi.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Can I share my screen at all or no? Is that a possibility?
Don Belt?
Yes, we could.
This is Colette. No, we cannot share screens.
Oh, okay. I had some slides. So good morning. My name is Tina Govan. I'm an architect and have lived and worked in Mordecai for nearly 30 years. I'm reading a statement that was co-written by several people on behalf of the newly established Preservation Committee within the Mordecai CAC. This committee was formed to protect the historic Seaboard's train station from complete demolition. As you may have heard, several of our members addressed concerns publicly at the February Mordecai CAC meeting with the new parcel owners. As a group, we are not against developments. However, we fear and see downtown landmarks are rapidly disappearing, and that with their demolition, we are losing what is unique to Raleigh, our character, our history, our story. We are not anti-development, but we wish to encourage developers to incorporate old structures with new ones, to make better projects, to make a better city for all of us, and to build a layered city, not just one that's 100% new. As you know, the Cotton Mills has been a Raleigh historic landmark since 1996. Consequently, the neighbors have made every effort to preserve and improve that building, and they would be most affected by this demolition and rezoning, as well as the construction of the proposed towers. In studying the rezoning application, they are most concerned with the lack of contextual response to the cotton mills and adjacent building, both in their argument as well as in their design. The developers refer only to the relationship with the Seaboard Station development and the future new developments on Peace Street and Capitol Boulevard. In a perspective drawing intended to support the height of the new development, the Cotton Mill is represented as a 12-story structure, omitting the fact that while the zoning may authorize that height, as a Raleigh historic landmark, the Cotton Mill may not be demolished. It's our opinion that in the interest of the preservation of historic landmarks, new construction adjacent to them should be contextual in their scale, proportions, and alignments. This does not mean not allowing taller buildings on the site, but rather by preserving the Seaboard Station and restricting the height of the structure that is directly across from the Cotton Mill. The Cotton Mill can be the backdrop for this new Seaboard Station development. Thank you for inviting our Preservation Committee today and allowing us to comment. And please reach out to committee co-chairs Dana Deaton and Patricia Morgado if you have any follow-up.
Right, just as a matter of just a point of information, Dana Deaton, who was going to be here today, had 2 deaths in her family and is on her way to a funeral and therefore unable to speak. And I think Tina has spoken eloquently for the group. Jeremy Bradham, excuse me, get it right in a minute. Jeremy, you there? Jeremy, do you wish to speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chair Williams. I appreciate that. You got it actually on the last time. You were going through the iterations of the last name, but you nailed it. I'm Jeremy Bradham. I'm the preservation specialist at Capital Area Preservation. Our offices are actually about 2 blocks away. There in Pilot Mill, which we've been for well over a decade. I just want to speak in favor and kind of echo the sentiments of Commission Member Reese and then Commission Member Dunn as well. As keeping the building in situ. That's a lot. We've worked with a lot of developers over the years as CAP, keeping buildings in place and having thoughtful development around those buildings. You can go all over the county. We do a lot of our work in the county, not necessarily in Raleigh. And we fully support efforts to kind of incorporate this important building. There was a lot of goodbyes and a lot of welcome homes said in this building at this site. So context is everything when you look at historic preservation. So I don't want to go into and keep anyone any further, so I'll keep it brief. But we just support any efforts to keep that building in situ in its context.
Thank you, Jeremy. I noted in your bio that you have a master's degree.
Yes, sir.
What's it in?
Historic preservation from Clemson University.
Okay. That's a small school, right? Clemson?
Well, yes, sir. But
it's a joke.
No. Technically speaking, our program, and actually Aaron Morton is from the same program. Your staff member at RHGC, but the program was in Clemson.
So Sandy. So you got an audience here. Y'all could have an alumni meeting. Let's see. We're through the presentation by the applicant. We've had comments from the commission. We have had comments from the interested parties. I'd like to hear from the staff on this staff report, please, and presentation.
Hey, Gaston, this is Colette. We have no additional presentation prepared. The memo that was attached is similar to the other rezoning memos that you've received today, for sure. Summarizing the nature of the request and the relevant site history, also drawing attention to any relevant comprehensive plan policies. Like Jamie said previously, it's very early in the application process, so things may change, especially the conditions that are provided. So that may alter some of the comments that we included in the memo.
Right. And my attention is drawn to page 2 of the memo in which you outline your conclusions and the policies affected. Any further, have I covered everything? Any further comments on this? The will of the commission is Curtis.
I just want to confirm this is going to come back around for another review later in the process, correct?
This is Colette. That I believe is up to the applicant. If they'd like to provide you with an update as they move forward, they are certainly able to reach out to us and let us know they'd like to be added to the agenda.
So our recommended action is whether to comment on the case or not. Is that correct? I'm reading from the outline of the agenda. So we can
you can choose to provide comments. But I think at this stage, it's a little too early to provide official comments on the nature of the request.
But should the commission wish to provide comments, we can vote on whether to recommend approval or denial according to the minutes agenda.
If I may be heard, this is Jamie Schwader representing the applicant. Because this doesn't fall under the 2 avenues that this normally comes to the commission under UDO 10.1.4, I think Colette's suggestion is the appropriate one. Let us take the comments that we've heard today, which I think were ample and give us a great idea of what the commission is thinking. And then we'll be in touch with staff and Colette through the normal process in terms of next steps.
Does that mean it'll come back to the commission before it goes to the planning commission?
At this point, we'll work with Colette. I think I'd just like to remind the commission, this is not a typical zoning case with which you do take action and recommend approval or denial. And so I don't think it's appropriate for us to commit to that at this point. But of course, we welcome any discussion from the commission, and we'll work with Colette through the planning department to facilitate that.
Just my personal comments. I didn't offer them earlier. I agree with some of the positions stated by Ian and John and Heather. My personal thoughts, I'll stay open to persuasion of other thoughts, but this is such a pivotal landmark, historic landmark for the city. There is nothing more important to this city's history remaining than Seaboard Station, just given its place in time, its place in history. And because it's not landmarked or otherwise, nobody in my past persuaded Robert Logan to do so or any of those things, doesn't mean it's not of great historical significance. I've asked for any motions by the commissioners or any, what you're feeling about waiting, or do you want to indicate your position at this point in time?
Gaston, here's my thought is that I think that our comments have been listened or heard. What I want to implore to the development team is to really take this to heart versus making this a perfunctory FaceTime event that basically says, well, we've checked that box and we're going to do certain things regardless. I really hope and just implore that the group to consider the overall long-term effects of the decisions they're making right now, because they cannot be reversed.
Any other comments?
Question.
Curtis?
Whether this comes back before us or not, my understanding is this does not preclude us from commenting on the case before it goes to Planning Commission, correct?
Right.
I'd like to suggest that we hold off on commenting, because I think what we're saying here is pretty loud and clear at this point. And let's see where things go.
All
Hopefully
right.
we can work with the developer and get to a good spot.
Jamie and Jason, I think you've seen the thoughts of the existing commission and the citizens who are interested in this project. They're pretty profound, and I have every belief that you and the developer will strongly consider them in your response. And I would be very happy that you contact us again, give us a chance to review your new thoughts on what to do. I think you would find our opposition or comments a little more bright lined if it proceeds beyond us without being consulted back to us. And I have no reason to think that you would do otherwise. The development company has been most generous in acknowledging history on the Martin Street property and on the Pine State Creamery property. So I have no reason to believe that they would be inconsistently considering historical issues right now. So with that matter, we'll move forward on the agenda to the next rezoning case, which is Z922. Any final comments needed to be said? I'm going to try to move the agenda so we can get through somewhat timely. Hearing no remarks or seeing no waving, we'll proceed on. Staff to help us walk through the Z922 on the agenda. And I believe it's going to be staff member Aaron and Matt.
Yes, good morning, Commission. This is Erin. So this rezoning case is for 320 West Cabarrus Street and 327 West Davy Street. Matt Clem, the case planner, is here with a brief presentation, and we are available to answer any questions. Additionally, there are a group of applicants here to speak if you wish. Matt Paul will be the lead and can recognize other members of the applicant team as needed.
Colette, let me interrupt one thing, please. I apologize to the commissioners and to the attendees. Matt, Jamie, Jason, Dana, and absentia, Matthew Brown, if you're listening, Tina and Jeremy, I thank you for attending today's meeting and expressing your thoughts on the CMART Drive Z522 matter. I neglected to thank you after the presentation. I would close that out now. Thank you very much, and move on to where we just were. Matt?
Yes, and this is Erin. Just wanted to add detail for this case. These two parcels are located within the Depot National Register District along the southern boundary. And I will turn it over to Matt.
Thank you. Matt Mann, you're on.
All right. So here's your existing zoning map. The two properties outlined in bold on the map on the right-hand side. So the existing zoning, about 2.5 acres. Existing zoning is downtown mixed use, 4 and 7 stories. There's 2 different districts. The proposed zoning is downtown mixed use, 20 stories with a shop front frontage and zoning conditions. Next slide. Here we are looking at the aerial. So this is the in the Depot Historic District, like Erin mentioned, a vacant site on the southwest, and that larger triangular site, which holds the depot building and parking area. Next slide. The request is inconsistent with the community mixed use future land use designation, which would recommend CX or commercial mixed use zoning. Next slide. The request is consistent with the urban format with the application of the shop front frontage. You can see similar to the other site we just looked at Seaboard Station, the area is in the downtown, which is the red color covering the map, and then the core transit area, which is shown with those hatched markings. This is a block or so from the Raleigh Union Station. Next slide. Proposed zoning conditions prohibit these uses and also provide specifics for additional parking deck screening for any development that goes on the site. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Matt, can you help me with one orientation? If you can go back to the second slide, please. Whoever's controlling the slides, the overhead view with the yellow triangles and trapezoids or whatever they are. Just this, yeah. Thank you very much, Colette. Just refresh my memory. I know where this is. The upper of the Davy Street side is where the pit is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's right.
where is the old Amtrak station? Is it now just debris, or is it indicated in one of those structures? Is that it off of Cabarrus? No, it's gone, right, in this photo?
Yeah, I mean, there was the historic platform that was moved to, I think, like the North Carolina Railroad Museum, but there was a structure there that's been removed. It's no longer there.
Okay. And was this the box, was that where the station was, or was it further over to the west?
That's right. It was in the square area, I believe. Let me double check.
That's all right. I'm just curious.
This is Erin. Yes, the circa 1949 passenger depot was located in that yellow box down on the bottom left. That's 320 West Cabarrus, and building was demolished in 2018.
I understand.
Thanks, Erin.
Mac, would you like to lead off the group? the applicant, or who's going to speak for the applicant?
Good morning, Gaston. I'll lead off here. Mac Paul, 421 Fayetteville Street, here on behalf of North Carolina Railroad. We have with us this morning several folks from the applicant team, including Robert Dobronsky, who's general counsel to North Carolina Railroad. We also have several with Redgate Real Estate Advisory who are assisting North Carolina Railroad with the redevelopment of this site. Ralph Cox, Katie Hearn, and Garrettson Brown. As you heard, we're early in the process. We haven't gotten our initial comment letter yet. This is an opportunity that North Carolina Railroad is looking at with the city's investment in Raleigh Union Station and the need for increasing passenger rail use in this area, and also will allow them to make some investments in their freight and passenger rail in other parts of the state. As you know, starting 4 or 5 years ago with the development of Raleigh Union Station, which was originally planned a couple of blocks to the north, which is why you see on the future land use map, it says community mixed use, but that West Gateway plan also called for the most intense use around Raleigh Union Station. So with the development of Raleigh Union Station, we've seen, tremendous interest in this area of town and a need to balance, the National Depot District with also a public demand for use of the rail station, more residential development and other type of development. So generally familiar with some of the issues that we've discussed before you on other projects, and we look forward to getting comments this morning. And we're early in the process. I'm confident we'll be coming back likely at your next meeting. So with that, we just look forward to having some conversation and getting your input this morning.
Anything else from the applicant team? Robert, Katie, Ralph?
I would just say one other thing is that we understand the importance of connectivity in this area, particularly with the rail infrastructure. So looking at some interconnectivity from north to south to Cabarrus Street.
I'll just ask the question because it's kind of one of the ultimate questions. Does the initial thinking necessarily preclude saving the structures that look like warehouse buildings that used to be a hub of great commercial activities between the trains and those buildings that are indicated in the trapezoid shape in those buildings? The long skinny building that used to have warehouses where they had offload freight and commerce from railroads and then disperse it by truck. Is it necessarily have to include demolition of that in your thinking at this stage, even if it's preliminary?
At this stage, we've certainly been doing test pits and studies and renderings and geometry, looking at the geometry of the site. It will be challenging to preserve the interior of the site, those warehouse districts that run north-south through the entirety of the site.
Question from the commission? John Reese?
Yeah, I am. I remember this from when I was working on the project that used to be the old station. And I think, I don't know who answers this, but as I understand it, there is a in the city record, there is a thing on the books where West Street, which is to the left of the rectangle of where the old station used to be, that street is on the map, possibly, at least it was then, that it's supposed to go all the way through and over the tracks and make a connectivity north to Davie Street. Is that still true?
Thank you. This is Matt Clem, City Planning. Yes, there is a plan to extend West Street north and south under the tracks, not over.
Thank you.
Yep.
Wow,
Thank you for that.
good memory. Commissioners, at this point, the recommended actions is whether to approve or deny the application or to defer comment. What say you? John, you spoke briefly. Harold?
No.
Everybody chime in here.
Yeah. So are you asking us to approve or deny this application
I'm just
currently?
just curious whether you have any questions that you would like to ask the applicant at this point, or any additional information you'd like at this point.
Yeah. So I'm not that familiar with this application. Is this the, I know we're going from, it looks like your request is going from 7 stories to 20 stories. Is there, can you tell us the program, or what exactly is the applicant trying to place here on the site? Like,
Yeah, Mr. Millette?
yeah.
Yeah, the, we're early. As I said, North Carolina Railroad has engaged Redgate Realty to help advise them on selecting a development partner to do a very high quality mixed use project here, most likely multifamily or a combination of multifamily and office use that would, serve, take advantage of the nearby Raleigh Union Station. And obviously the main change here would be height, just to give more flexibility and opportunity, both to maximize the development opportunity and generate revenue for the railroad for, other services they provide.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the first early like red flag that I see that would be inconsistent with the other parcels of land surrounding this project. So that's kind of just my only heads up concern currently.
Sandy?
I don't have any comments or questions.
Curtis?
Yeah, I find this almost akin to Seaboard Station, but even a little more of an issue in my brain, and losing especially the freight depot building, which is the long building that sits astride the eastern end of the trapezoidal portion of the site. I mean, because they're so, you look at the National Register designation, it's the second building mentioned in the preamble of the designation. It is so core to the identity of the district that losing it is, there's another depot in the district, the old Grand Union Station, which I believe is identified in the designation as number 12. The two of them are the two anchors of the district. I find it really hard to imagine how we could possibly recommend approval of the proposed zoning change here, because it results in the loss of this key building.
Heather?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Yeah, I'm pretty much just on board with what he just said. Is this a situation where we are able, this is a little bit different though, where we're able to vote to protect this? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Erin. Any action you take on a vote would be to recommend approve or not and provide comment to the Planning Commission as the next stage of the rezoning process.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm on board with
I
what you
believe
said.
Mr. Paul noted that they do intend to come back to a meeting in the future, a business meeting of the RHDC, once they've developed additional detail and heard comments as well.
Okay.
Ian, I'll just get any comments from the rest of the commission. Ian?
Yeah, I'll second what Curtis said. I think that losing this building would severely threaten the district's existence. it's so central to what the warehouse district is that if this were gone, I mean, of course there are resources left, but yeah, it's the end of the district, in my opinion.
Katie?
I echo the concerns of the other commissioners and don't have any additional questions or comments.
Travis? Any additional comments?
I just have to add that it seems like ever since the rezoning of the gravel parking lot at Davie and Dawson Street, we've just kind of opened up the floodgates for taking away bits and pieces of this district at a time. And like others have said, this is one of the last core parts of it. So it's disappointing we don't have an HOD in place or a landmark designation in place to give us greater power to protect this, but I can't see any way to recommend anything that would remove the building. With that said, I would recommend we defer, given this is very early in the application process, and we may still have room for more discussion that would preserve the building.
Sandy, I think I already called on you and you didn't have any additional comments, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Anybody, did I miss John Reese? I'm sorry, I missed you.
I would like to, I'm going to, again, be the hardliner here. I would like to make a motion for denial right now. I think it's important that we make it quite clear where we stand on this issue, and that the importance of losing even more of our city's history, especially in this railroad district. And it's interesting to me that it's being presented by the railroad, and that that stewardship should be paramount to this development process. I think if connectivity is an issue or a benefit of this, let's implement and encourage them to continue West Street up to Davie and make that connectivity part of the urban fabric of Raleigh. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we deny this application, and I'd like to cite the certain relative comprehensive plan policies, HP 1.1, 1.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.7, 3.1, 3.2, 3.4, that specifically are note the inconsistencies of this development with this site.
You wish those to be a part of your motion, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second from the commission? There's a second from Sandy Feaster. I would just add one comment, Mac. Mac, you've worked very nicely with us before on many things, and gentlemen from the owner, the applicant owner, it is a little different than Seaboard. The company owns this land already and didn't have the misfortune of paying $3 million an acre for this land as the prior applicant for Seaboard did. I sure wish there was a way creatively to embrace this history that the railroad had and the importance of it to the city, not destroy it. I just think I know it's a challenging lot, but I just think it could be not just a commercially effective possible, but also like a tourist draw almost, to see an old freight area that has cobblestone remnants or whatever that was the heart of the thing. But that's just my comment, and I thank you guys for appearing. All those in Curtis, additional comments? All those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand or indicating.
Mr. Chair, can I get one question in real quick? If we vote right now to staff, if we vote to deny as our recommendation, does that cut off our ability to bring the applicant back to further discuss this project and submit a new recommendation for the rezoning?
I personally think that they could come back to us and we could reconsider our earlier motion and change it.
Then may I suggest we amend our motion slightly, which is just to say that we find that the proposed rezoning is inconsistent in its current form with blah, 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 just saying, clearly opening the door to some idea that actually preserves it. I don't know what that would be, but I just certainly I don't want to discourage the applicant and tell them to run away, because we really do want to work with them. But it is, as proposed, seems.
Reese, would you accept that as a friendly amendment to your motion?
I would, thank you.
And Sandy, would you accept that as a friendly amendment to your second of the motion? So, all those in favor of the motion as amended and signify by raising your hands. All those opposed signify by raising your hand. The vote is unanimous on the commission. Matt, Mac, Robert, Katie, Ralph, and Garrettson, I hope that we hear from you again, and I hope we can work together. I hate that some of these seem to be confrontational of sorts, but they really aren't. We really just trying to do our job and fulfill our mission, and I hope you appreciate that too.
We do. Thanks very much, Gaston.
Thank you, Ben.
Gaston, I'd like to just, because I know that I'm the most contentious in this process, and I know that my passion for what we're talking about is strong, and I know it comes out as hand slapping, but I really want us to wake up, and I really want us to pay attention to what long-term decisions we're making here, and we really have got to be, I think, make a strong stand about what's important to us as a city and what makes Raleigh Raleigh. I can't reiterate that enough, and I want us to really be good stewards across the board, and that everybody participate in that. And I'm sorry that I get so forward about it, but when's it going to stop? I mean, we really got to stop tearing stuff down. It's important that our memories and our history are being gone away. I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
But you're kind of out of order at this point on.
I understand.
So we need to move on. Again, thanks everyone for that. We have a report from the nominations committee. I think, let me go through the agenda so we'll have the record of it. There are no recombination recorded plat issues. There are no right-of-way closure issues. There are no historic landmark designation issues at this time. No National Register nominations at this time. We're on to officer elections and fulfilling a seat that was vacated. You remember that Katie Pate is now the vice chair, which left open the secretary treasurer. I believe there's a nomination coming from the nomination committee, an agreement for Harold Millette to fill the job as secretary treasurer for the unfilled term. That's brought to you by the committee and doesn't need a motion. Any questions? Harold, this is your last chance. I believe you've agreed to do this. I believe you've been coached by Coach Pate has given you the rundown on the obligations of the job. I don't think there are any remaining questions, but I'd be glad to hear from the commission or from Harold any questions you have about his nomination to become the secretary treasurer for the unfilled term.
No questions for me. I'm on board.
All right.
Yeah, just wanted to express some gratitude, Harold, for your willingness to take this position, and the coaching has just begun. We'll be doing all kinds of fun tax filings and whatnot.
Oh, they're going to have a secret handshake and all that stuff. Let us in on it. All right. All those in favor of asking Harold Millette to become the secretary treasurer for the unfilled term signify by raising your hand. Any opposed signify by doing something. Okay. The board, the commission has voted unanimously to elevate you. And Harold, thank you very much for willingness to serve. We now have filled our roster. The next discussion item is the New Bern Corridor TOD overlay. I believe it's Jason or Ira or both or some of the above are going to present something briefly.
Yes, sir. This is Ira Mabel, unless Aaron or Colette had some preamble for me.
You
This-
need no introduction.
You're good to go, Ira.
All right, great. So just be mindful of the time. I might go a little bit faster through some of the earlier parts of this than I had originally planned. But my name is Ira Mabel. I'm in the Comprehensive Planning Division of the Planning Development Department. Here to discuss the sort of implementation phase of our station area plan for New Bern Avenue. This is specifically not, so what I'm not going to talk about today is the bus rapid transit or BRT line itself or the station design or anything about the transit infrastructure. All that stuff is being led out of Go Raleigh staff. But we in the planning department are doing our part with this plan, which is really about land use and zoning around in the neighborhoods around the BRT stations themselves. That means up to a quarter mile, sometimes half a mile. The idea being to get the transit infrastructure and our built form, to make each other be successful. So we can go to the next slide. Apologize in advance to Colette if I'm going to skip ahead. So we are close to the end here. Working on this project for almost a year now, doing a lot of outreach and plan drafting. We are now working on a final report to present to council to go through the approval process, which involves planning commission approval, city council, public hearing, etc. Next slide. These are the goals of the project. I'll skip this one. Next slide. We have spent a lot of focus on public engagement. A lot of it are sort of standard stuff, but a couple of unique things. We had a summit specifically about affordable housing. We had another one specifically about walking and biking. And in the RFQ to choose our consultant for this project, we had a requirement to do some research about the history of the corridor and the people who live there. I believe I have a slide on that later. That we were anticipating that to be, important to people based on, what we know from as planning staff and having worked in this neighborhood for years and years, that was probably going to be real important as we talked about how the corridor would change. Next slide. And this is a couple of points of summary of what we heard. Generally, people acknowledge that these neighborhoods will have to change around BRT and get taller and denser for the most part. And then affordable housing was a big topic. Again, not really a surprise, but sort of reinforced what we knew as a city we were going to have to focus on. Next slide. And then again, the history and culture and community leaders and community members and businesses that are around New Bern came up quite a lot. The public engagement consultant on the team did some interviews of long-term residents. They made a video. They got some great old photos. That is available on their YouTube channel if anyone's interested. They're called Public Participation Partners. If you find their YouTube channel, they only have a handful of videos, and one is called The Story of New Bern. And so we do have some recommendations. Next slide is a map of that we were working on with Raleigh Arts about existing assets in the neighborhood or where things used to be. And there are recommendations in the plan above and beyond the zoning recommendations for preserving some of these things or enhancing them or highlighting them.
Yeah.
Next slide. The real reason, though, that we want that this is good timing for us to we're doing presentations to various boards and commissions, is that one of the outcomes of this project will be a city-initiated rezoning. So the main element of that will be mapping a new overlay district along the corridor, so the transit overlay district. This was revised last year in anticipation of this. We are also mapping this district right now on the southern corridor and the western corridor. But this project was sort of taking the lead on how it would work on New Bern Avenue itself. And the point of that district is to make a more walkable, more mixed use, more dense, frankly, development close to BRT stations. Really, so that more people can use that infrastructure, that really significant investment that the city's making, and also so that, right, so that's mutually beneficial, both to make the transit successful and to make these neighborhoods, give more people access to this great new transit asset. Next slide, please. So this map is showing the current zoning districts. Those are all the colors, and that thick black outline around parts of it. So that blue sort of cyan line is New Bern Avenue, and those white dots are all the stations. And that thick black line is where right now we are proposing to map the transit overlay district. So you can see quite a bit of it outside 540. Some of it's sort of around Wake Med, and then on the western part of the corridor, it's coming in closer to downtown, a little bit tighter in around New Bern itself, but basically on either side of New Bern. Next slide is a zoom in of the western stations. So you can see there's a couple sets of double dots. Those are the New Bern Edenton pairs. And then the next single one looking to the right is Raleigh Boulevard. And you can see sort of the dash circle is the quarter-mile radius around all those stations. What's not shown on this map, so the TOD overlay, we are working through the conversations between staff and the consultant about what the final recommendation to bring forward to council is. I think we're going to all the boards and commissions to get some input on that before we do that. What's not shown on this map is we're also recommending height increases. Basically, I believe the current thinking still is for most of this area that's not in the King Charles NCOD, we're recommending to increase the height from 3 to 5 stories. And there will also be some base districts, so the actual zoning districts themselves, that we're going to recommend to change. Those are not nearly as far along in our thinking as the overlay. So I'm not ready to show those right now. But there we are looking at like a suite of rezoning recommendations to bring forward. So you can see on the left-hand side there is right, and this first draft of where the TOD overlay would go does overlap with the Oakwood Historic District. So that fact caused us to sort of regroup with historic preservation staff and think through the strategy for what we want to recommend for that part of the corridor. So the next slide should show the HOD, and then that blue line is where, based on that first draft from the consultant, where the HOD and the TOD would overlap. I think that shape is actually not quite right. The TOD would go on that East Street part of the HOD that extends out to that cul-de-sac. It would cover those two lots too, I think.
Ira, I know this is an incredible amount of work. I don't diminish its importance whatsoever, but could you speed along?
Sure. So we can go to the next slide. So there are 3 parts to the rezoning strategy here, or the zoning strategy. There's the HOD, which we are not proposing to remove. Then there's the TOD, which does a lot of stuff. I am showing on this slide only the parts of the zoning code that would change, that would not be affected by the certificate of appropriateness process. So the TOD changes, lot sizes and heights and stuff, but your COA would take precedent over that. So the TOD would not really change the rules for these property owners, but they would change other parts of the code. So the TOD does have some use prohibitions in it. So no new single family or duplex uses would be permitted. No new vehicle related uses, that's car washes and vehicle fuel sales, et cetera. It would change the parking standards. It would also change tree conservation, which is probably not an issue here given the lot sizes. And then all the other things that the COA would basically take precedent over. So, you know, we are not thinking of, like I said, removing the HOD. We also wouldn't probably recommend a height increase here because that would be meaningless. The COA process would determine how tall your building could be. So not interested in giving people a false impression of what they could build. But we're thinking about this overlay. And then the next slide shows, you know, if we were thinking too about base standard districts, so where the zoning and the HOD do not overlap is use, right? So currently most of this area in the Oakwood HOD is zoned office mixed use. That's the lefternmost column there with the letters. So in that district, you cannot use a building for indoor recreation, which includes event space rental. You cannot use it for a bar. You can use it for a restaurant, but not if that's the only thing in the building. You have to have some other use in the building. So there are some use standards that restrict commercial use. And the other two, so moving to the right, you know, there are different standards for the next zoning category up, neighborhood mixed use, and then even further commercial mixed use. So I think we are, you know, at the drawing board stage here, trying to figure out what is the best approach to achieve both the goals of historic preservation that the city has, but also the goals of, you know, the type of development that we hope to encourage and also prohibit around the bus rapid transit. So I guess given the time, I'll pause and see if there are any questions. I think our ask of the RHDC at this stage is right now your initial thoughts. I think we will definitely come back when we have a more firm proposal that we're going to bring to City Council. But any thoughts you have right now that would help us formulate that, I think would be great timing.
Ira, I don't mean to truncate your presentation, but would it be equally as acceptable for you to come back at our March meeting, give us an overcap, and then ask for overview, and then ask for our comments in 30 days, and maybe or do you need our comments right now because we're running real long on time here in this meeting?
I mean, that's, I think at the pleasure of the commission, I'm happy to come back as often as you'll have me. I think, you know, one word of warning is that we are, you know, moving this, since the train is leaving the station, if I can pile on to the train theme for this morning. So, you know, we are trying to get this project in place. The BRT itself is breaking ground this year. So we definitely tried to get in front of you early enough where you could have time to think about this and comment. For sure. I think we are hoping to bring it to council, you know, before their summer break to at least start the process, you know, authorize the rezoning, have that start to go through planning commission.
I think the key elements that you're, from our point of view, is that it won't declassify any HOD issues, and all other issues about form and substance will go through the CAC process. The COA process, excuse me.
Right, where the HOD is still in place.
Gotcha.
I mean, there will be zoning changes adjacent to the HOD, so near the Oakwood, but not in the Oakwood. But we are not looking to change the boundary of the Oakwood HOD or remove it anywhere. So the COA would still be there for those folks.
Austin, I have a question, if I may. It's Katie Pate here. I was curious, staff, if maybe we could have this presentation sent around to us so that we have an opportunity to would it be helpful or possible if we could comment via email? I think it'd be helpful for me if I had some time to sit with this information and think a little bit more, and also more timely than waiting month to month for the business
graphics
meeting.
are available off board docs as a link. If you, to go to them, we'll make sure a link gets sent to you to the slides that Ira used to walk through in his presentation, and then we'll figure out a way to encourage how to address your questions to him in such a way that we can all benefit from the questions and answers.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I see the presentation in board docs now. My bad. Got it.
I would just encourage that where subtle conflicts exist between TOD and the HOD, that some effort be made to clarify stuff. Like, for instance, Oakwood HOD, while it's OX zoning, it's in this area, the character of the built stuff are basically 1 and 2 unit structures, primarily with single unit structures, which from what I understand from the presentation would be prohibited under the TOD. It might just be, frankly, easier to pull the TOD out of overlaying Oakwood. Second area of concern is the Longwood area, which was identified in surveys as being potential listing area, and I'd hate to encourage the destruction of that mid-century modern neighborhood. But happy to do further comments by email or however.
Ira, would you work with the staff in figuring out a way to communicate with us to include the link to your re-include link to your presentation and give us a corridor to funnel questions like Katie's and Curtis's to you, and then be able to see the responses, so we, and if necessary, come back next month also, please.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you very much, and sorry to truncate your presentation today. I apologize. We do need to move on to this next agenda item, which is the 60th anniversary celebration, and an idea about ways to not only just as a part of that celebration, but also to propose use of NFTs for raising awareness and raising some money for the RHDC. I think Travis has prepared a presentation on his idea for the NFTs, and I think there's a graphics in your loaded into docs so you can see. Travis?
I will say we might be running a bit short on time to get through this, but I can try and speed through it, and then we can pick it up next month when we have word back from the city attorney's office, if that works.
Okay, and so you'll know the context for this is the NFT proposal you're about to hear briefly about is it involves some legal, we need to make sure that the city attorney's office is okay with what we intend to do or propose to do or propose to consider, because if they're not okay with it, consideration of it might end with the idea and go further.
And since I'm sure that remark has kind of piqued everybody's interest, what we're discussing here about remarks we're looking to get back from the city attorney is pretty straightforward. It's predominantly, as I'm sure many of you are aware if you've heard of NFTs before, the NFT token itself is typically associated with a piece of artwork or imagery when it's presented for people to make a purchasing decision on or displaying the NFT. So we're working with the city attorney to determine, number one, how to determine if we have the rights to leverage the image that we look to use in the NFT. And then also all NFTs have like a metadata space where you can provide text to describe or discuss the token, what kind of disclaimer we would need to put in there to make sure people, for example, don't misrepresent that this means you purchased the building, for example. Again, all very straightforward things from the attorney's office. We're just looking to hear back from them on that before we actually advised on any action. Going to the first slide, and I'd encourage everybody to kind of download these slides and browse them at your leisure as well. Is just a basic summary of Blockchain 101. It's accompanied by an example in slide 2 that's overly simplified. The thing you need to keep in mind when you're discussing an NFT, it's the address of the NFT. So if you go to slide 2, you'll see an example of a blockchain wallet address. And again, we'll discuss this again in more detail next month at our next meeting. I'm just speeding through this due to time. That long string of numbers at the bottom next to example, that is an address. So the best way to keep that in mind is if you look at a phone book, which I think everybody here, my generation and older, remembers paper phone books. You can go through a phone book and you can find multiple entries for the same name, but you can only find one entry for one address or one phone number. That's the same way with an NFT. Think of the picture that's attached to the NFT as like the name in the phone book. You can have multiple copies of it, but you can only have one particular address or one phone number. That's what makes the NFT unique in terms of transferring it, holding it, claiming ownership is just that address. We can skip slide 4. That just touches on the particular blockchain that NFTs are used on right now that we're looking at. And here's an example. All right, so a non-fungible token. Non-fungible is an economic term. It just means that unlike a US dollar, for example, $1 is as good as any other dollar. A non-fungible means this item is unique in some aspect. You can't take another one and they necessarily have the same value or usage. The token itself is meant to represent something unique on the blockchain. The blockchain is this ever-growing ledger of data, and it's contained within blocks. So once you create this particular object and you upload it to the blockchain, it's called minting. So you essentially write this to the blockchain along with the art image and any metadata associated. It is permanently saved on the blockchain. It cannot be deleted. The one you're seeing right now has not been minted. The image can be changed and the metadata can be changed. It can be deleted. Once you mint it, it is there permanently. This image that's used was actually produced by a contract designer. I think it cost about $25 to $50 to have this done. It is a vector image of the entryway to the Royal Bread Factory. We designed like a simple frame to go around it, intentionally to be used as an NFT and catch people's eyes. And we can make as many of these as we want. Not necessarily the same image. For another $25, we can have a different vector image placed in there. Next slide, please. So the selling piece. So there's two ways that you can go about this. The website that I'm familiar with is called OpenSea.io. There are a number of different websites out there that you can produce and sell NFTs on. But like anything else, you want to be utilizing the website that has the largest amount of traffic, so you have the largest number of potential customers to sell this to get the best price. So you have one of two different strategies. You can go with a unique object and offer it up as an auction. So people would bid up the price of the item after a set amount of time. That would be locked, and the person who bid the highest would win the item and they would have to pay before the NFT is transferred to them. There is also a fixed price strategy. So that's typically done when you have multiple copies of the same image of the NFT. So you'd have maybe 20, 30 NFTs. They all have that particular Royal Bread Factory vector image on them, and we would sell them at a fixed price of, let's say, the equivalent to $25 in cryptocurrency. Both strategies are valid. Most people are going to be using the auction strategy, not the fixed price strategy. Next slide, please. So the proposed proposal, again with an asterisk next to it because we're waiting to hear back from the city's attorney's office, would be hiring a graphic designer to create the artwork for the NFTs, generating the NFTs on the OpenSea.io platform, selling the NFTs, converting the cryptocurrency into what's called stablecoin, and I'll touch on that in the next coming slide, send the stablecoin to a crypto exchange utilizing a nonprofit account. We do have the nonprofit arm of RHDC, which we can use in order to avoid hefty taxes on any money that we raise from the sale of these crypto assets. We would then sell the stablecoin for US dollars and then deposit the money into RHDC's account for preservation purposes. Next slide, please. Someone last time had asked about potential risks. These are just kind of the high level risks that call out. So whatever we pay for the NFTs, there's two prices there. One is if we hire a graphic designer for the artwork. The second is that action of writing the NFT to the blockchain incurs a fee called gas. So on the Ethereum blockchain, you pay for transaction fees in Ethereum. On Bitcoin's blockchain, you pay for it in Bitcoin. So those two fees, the graphic designer, again, is $25 to $50 per design. The gas fee varies greatly. If you've ever heard about cryptocurrency in the news, the value of that changes dramatically daily, 24 hours a day. As it stands right now, the range would be roughly $60 to mint, and I would say $30 for the design. So we would be looking in the neighborhood of about $90 to generate an NFT. The risk there would be as if the project isn't successful and we're stuck holding the NFTs in our own digital wallet. Whatever we spent would be kind of a sunk cost at that point. Not necessarily sunk because we could still sell the NFTs presumably in the future, but we would be left holding the bag for any expenses we incurred at that point until it sells. And then legal, we already went over. Next slide, please. So this is just kind of a visual example of that proposal and the pathway that it would follow. The NFT would sell. We would receive cryptocurrency in a digital wallet registered to the Historic Commission. That cryptocurrency, which is called Ethereum, also represented sometimes as WETH, W-E-T-H, or ETH, is converted into what's called a stable coin. Stable coins, there's a few of them that exist, and they are pegged to the value of the US dollar. The idea being if you hold cryptocurrency, so Ethereum, and Ethereum at that time is worth, let's say, $2,400 per coin, and you do not want to risk the price of Ethereum going down. You can exchange it for a stable coin. Each coin is worth $1. If you go to the next slide, it shows you that graph looks kind of scary, but if you look at the scale on the left-hand side, the lowest it's ever gone is 97 cents a coin. The highest it's ever gone is $1.04 a coin. And from August 2019 forward, it's pretty much stayed at $1 a coin. So the benefit there is you exchange it for a stable coin, you've essentially locked in any of your capital gains and avoided capital losses. The stablecoin I'd be recommending is called USDC. It is managed by a consortium called Centra, and part of that is one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, Coinbase, manages that particular stablecoin in partnership with a company called Circle, and it is also the only stablecoin that is accepted by Visa. Actually, it's the only stablecoin accepted by any major U.S. credit card vendor as payment for a credit card bill. I flew through that as quickly as I possibly could given our time constraints. Again, happy to talk more about this next month. Hopefully we can get it higher on the agenda. Any questions, comments, concerns? All right, back over to you.
We'll make sure we put it on the agenda, and hopefully we'll have a opinion from the city attorney's office by then to see what we can, how we can use this to raise money. 60th anniversary celebration. Anybody get? Do we have a quick overview of this?
Yeah.
Justin? Sorry, Heather. Can I jump in here for a second?
Sure.
Please.
I need to leave. Are we gonna have a quorum if I leave?
I don't think there are any other matters to vote on.
I need to leave too, actually.
I think we all need to leave at the 2-hour mark. So let's see what we can do to make the use of the next 4 minutes, 3 minutes here. Heather, how do you want to do this 60th anniversary celebration? You want to send us up
Yep.
something?
Yeah, I can just send an email with some updates in it so we don't have to take time here.
Okay, let's do it that way. There's some exciting news. We're going to do pop-up history, which ought to be interesting. You do have a PDF in your documents on the 60th anniversary. I'm going to defer unless there are any objections, reports of community awareness, research, certificate of appropriateness. Rashay is unable to be with us today. Nominations, I will tell you that the nomination committee sent forward 3 names to fill the 2 vacancies. That's Jordan Ryland and David Sexner, Sursner, and Rob Allen have been before. They should be voted on at City Council this afternoon, so we'll be back up to full commission levels hopefully after today. 1 or more of those folks expressed an interest in being on the COA committees. Staff, is there anything else that needs to be brought up or reported on that cannot be deferred to the next time?
Yes, and this is Erin. Just a brief reminder to everyone that we have requested that the joint public hearings scheduled for our 2 landmark applications were initially rescheduled to this afternoon's meeting. We've requested that those be moved to the March 1st City Council meeting, which is an evening agenda. I believe I have heard from enough of you that we should have quorum if everybody is able to attend the meeting.
The March meeting.
Yes, on March 1st.
Yeah.
We'll also hopefully have our 2 vacancies filled as well. So fingers crossed. I think that it should go smoothly for us come March 1st.
Just to confirm, we don't need to be there this afternoon, right?
That's correct.
Just I think the letter document we sent to City Council with the qualifications and nominations for the unfilled positions is on board docs, is it not, Erin?
This is Erin, that's correct. And we can report out with a brief email on the results of today's meeting.
Okay, and these are you'll see in the detail when we get a chance to discuss it, how important these people can be to our work. Thank you very much. I know we've gone an hour over our normal time. We covered a great deal of important information today, I think, and I'm sorry to take up this much of your time. I appreciate your continued support of our work together, and send me any suggestions you have. Thanks to staff for their work complicated by working, doing the work of several people right now, and thanks everyone. If there's no objection, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. It is exactly 9:45. Seeing no objection, the meeting is adjourned. So
Thanks,
long,
y'all.
all.
Bye.
Anybody need to contact me, call me.